nobody dislikes Gavin Newsom more than myself. And I don't want anybody to be mistaken for the points that I'm going to make tonight. And that's that I feel that people are underestimating him and dismissing him for his wantingness to be president of this country, even though he hasn't announced that he's running yet. It's pretty obvious that he is. He's been campaigning for the last, I don't know, year already. It seems like he's never in California doing his actual job. But yeah, people are underestimating him. And Trump has, I mean, I should also say I'm a libertarian. I'm not a Republican. And yes, I voted for Trump, and I have conservative values. I actually think I'm more conservative than a lot of Republicans, but that does not mean that I am just going to fall in lockstep with everything that Trump's doing. In fact, I have been nothing but disappointed with Trump. The only thing that I've been pleased with him about is shutting down the border. Everything else I have been disappointed with Trump about, literally everything. And one of the primary reasons that I voted for him is that he didn't start any new wars in his first term. And here we are at war with Iran. And I'm not pleased about it at all. The Epstein files stuff. He's come out recently and said some other things that are just highly disappointing. And he is handing Gavin Newsom a lot of political footballs. Sage of Echoes, nice to see you, homie. Haven't seen you in a while. You should go running again soon. Yes, Trump is fumbling the ball and Gavin is picking it up and running with it in more ways than one. And I'm going to cover them. I mean, the mishandling of the Epstein files, he's been running with that. Gavin, he's been, using that as a political football as much as possible and taking little cheap shots at Trump. And I think most people should be able to agree that at the very least, Trump mishandled the Epstein files. At the worst, it's been a full-scale cover-up. But that's giving Gavin Newsom ammo. This whole war with Iran stuff and seemingly doing anything that Israel demands is also giving Gavin Newsom ammo. And I'll get into that in a second. But the next thing is going to be gas prices. Gas prices in California are 100% Gavin Newsom and California Democrats' fault. I talk about it probably every episode, the cap and trade stuff, the gas taxes per gallon. We pay like an extra $1.40 per gallon on top of what the regular price would be. And then you have the refinery stuff, California having their own special regulations for California with their own special blends. And it's made refineries shut down and move out and say it's just not profitable for us to run a refinery in California. So all of these things have led to skyrocketing gas prices in California. Well, this war with Iran likely is not going to help gas prices nationwide, at least in the short term, especially if they shut down the Strait of Hormuz. And with refineries like in I can't remember what refinery in the Middle East that I saw on fire today, but it seems that production's going to drop, trade routes are going to be blocked, and gas prices could very likely skyrocket in the United States. And Gavin's using that, and it's infuriating because it's such gaslighting. Like I said, gas prices in California are insanely high, but if they spike nationwide, Gavin's going to be able to point to Trump and say, look what Trump did to gas prices. And we all know he's full of shit, but there's lots of people that are going to buy it and say, yeah, look what Trump did to gas prices. And unfortunately, he's not even going to be completely wrong, because if this war with Iran does cause gas prices to spike nationwide, granted, the price spikes in California would be on top of Gavin Newsom's price spikes, but he's going to be able to sidestep that and gaslight everybody and point the blame at Trump, whether he's correct or not. So I also think people are underestimating how charismatic and smart he is. People don't think that he's smart for some reason, even though he said I got a 960 IQ, just like you guys. I'm black too, is what he said essentially on stage. But I think people are underestimating his political chops. In addition to all of that, even though there's people saying that there's a 90% approval rating of Trump amongst Republicans right now, I think that is bullshit. I think a ton of the MAGA base is furious with Trump. And I think the people that were once never Trump, Bush era neocons, have now captured the base and said that we are the MAGA base now. People that, like Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, Ted Cruz, those type guys, they, to me, represent the Bush era neocon, warmongering, status quo Republican Party of old. And they have somehow taken over MAGA. And then the disaffected liberals, independents, libertarians, anti-war, pro-free speech that have voted for Trump are very disappointed. And I think there's a large faction of MAGA that is just going to stay home. So not that they're going to vote for Democrats, even though Nick Fuentes says he's going to. A lot of people are just going to stay home in the next election. If somehow Trump doesn't turn this around in the next 3 years, but I mean, who knows? This war could last that whole time. So all these things together, I think, are going to give Gavin Newsom a running start and a boost in the polls. And if he can get past the primaries, who knows who he's going to be up against, because we haven't even gotten to the midterms yet. But I think there should be valid concern for everybody that fears a Gavin Newsom presidency, like I do, that lots of the MAGA base is going to stay home during the next election and say, you guys can figure it out, because we're done participating in this program. So we'll get right into it. We'll go to some Gavin Newsom clips here. Drop a comment in the chat, drop a comment, give the show a like, all that good stuff. All right, let's get right into it, shall we? Because it's hard for me to listen to Gavin Newsom talking, but we're gonna have to get through some Gavin Newsom clips because there's just too much shit to talk about, even though I hate listening to his voice. So let's get right into it. So this is from Raz Saber. Says Newsom has gone full Mom Donnie. He says the United States is being pushed by Israel into a position where it may have to reconsider its military support. And now he's echoing the claim that Israel is an apartheid state. The Democrat Party is dead. I argue the exact contrary. The exact contrary. Let's listen to this clip and then I'll explain why I think he is completely wrong about the Democrats.
And a lot of Democrats have looked at the Netanyahu regime and felt like, you know what, we don't like the trajectory he's on. It's time to rethink the U.S. relationship with Israel, especially military support.
Well,
where do you stand?
Making that easy right now. Let's talk about that. But the issue of Bibi is interesting because he's got his own domestic issues. He's trying to stay out of jail. He's got an election coming up. He's potentially on the ropes. He's got folks, the hard line, that want to annex the West Bank. I mean, Freeman and others are talking about it appropriately, sort of an apartheid state. They couldn't even, we're talking about regime change. For 2 years, they haven't even been able to solve the Hamas question in Israel. So this is, I want to be careful here, but, in so many ways, that influence in the context of the conversation of where Trump ultimately landed on this is pretty damn self-evident. And so Rubio may have been saying something else in the context of what he ultimately said in terms of being sort of pulled into some of these things. But I will say this, didn't surprise me in this context. I don't know if it was Napoleon or whoever said about a sword, the only thing you can't use a sword for is sitting on it. And when you bring 2 aircraft carriers out there and you assemble the kind of military force that Trump did over the last few weeks, it didn't surprise me ultimately they moved that direction.
Do you think?
I hate to agree with Gavin Newsom, but it's hard for me to actually argue with anything he said there. And I'll keep playing the clip because I have more to add after this.
I think looking down the road that the United States should consider maybe, rethinking our military support for Israel.
It breaks my heart because the current leadership in Israel is walking us down that path where I don't think you have a choice but that consideration. To say this is in America's interest at a time when affordability is at crisis levels, where you had an administration who literally got elected saying this is exactly opposite of what they would ever consider doing. The fact that we are in this now regional war, all these proxies, the fact that we, and all the grift and the corruption that's also marks a huge part of this. And that's a real conversation we need to have, this board of peace, and the peace that the Witkoff family's getting, and the peace that Kushner is getting, and the peace that Trump Jr. is getting.
All right. So the most important thing that Gavin said right there is that this war isn't in America's interest. And a lot of the America First folk, that's exactly what we've been saying the whole time, that war with Iran is not in America's interest. Iran does not pose any sort of threat to the mainland United States. They pose a threat to Israel. And as Marco Rubio said, what he's referencing is Marco Rubio said that essentially our hand was forced and we had to strike them first because we knew Israel was going to strike Iran and Iran was going to strike our bases back. So we had to be preemptive. A preemptive defensive position is what he said he took. Gavin Newsom taking this stance right now is a big deal, is a really big deal. First of all, amongst Democrats, he's not even popular. But what's really not popular amongst Democrats is what's been happening in Gaza lately. And Gavin mentioning that Israel seems to be an apartheid state and talking about how maybe we should question the military funding support that we give them, that's going to earn major points among Democrats. And it's actually going to earn points amongst America Firsters. May not get people to vote for him. In fact, like on the right, America First types. But as Nick Fuentes already said, he's going to vote Democrat in the midterms. I don't know if he's seen this clip, but I mean, I think it's a fair question to ask right now. Is Gavin courting the Groypers? Is Gavin courting the America First Groyper movement? Because that's the opportunity that he's being presented with right now. I mean, he has been handed a very powerful political football, and he seems to be using it and using it well. Again, I can't stand Gavin Newsom. I will go so far as to say I hate him. I don't hate very many people at all. Gavin Newsom is one of them. I think he has destroyed huge aspects of California. He's destroyed the middle class. He makes it impossible to get ahead and barely possible to just stay afloat as a middle class Californian. And the only reason we're staying here is because of how much we love California, not the government, the geographical location, California, with how much beauty it is, how much beauty there is, how perfect the weather is. And there is still, despite Gavin Newsom, a lot of opportunity here. So I say all that just to preface that I do not support Gavin Newsom. I will never vote for Gavin Newsom. But he's being handed a political football right now, and he's using it, and he's using it well. So you could disagree with me on that, but I think this Iran war thing specifically and the mishandling of the Epstein files is giving Gavin Newsom a lot of ammo, and it could gain him a lot of points in the polls. So we'll keep going here. Then you have someone on the Democrat side that's taking the opposite stance. You've got John Fetterman. So this is from Eyal Yacobi. I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. He's a very pro-Israel person. He says, breaking, Senator Fetterman rips into Gavin Newsom over his comments on Israel. And we'll just play the clip.
And that's another truth here about the Democratic Party. We're coming more and more anti-Israel. You know, Governor Newsom announced, now he just described Israel as an apartheid state. I mean, that's a talking point of the fringe of my party.
Is it though? I mean, let's really look at Israel from that, through that lens. Is Israel an apartheid state? Let's ask that question. So to answer it, what do we have to look at? We have to look at Gaza. We have to look at the West Bank. Does anyone in Gaza have a vote? Do they get to vote on anything that happens in Israel? Is Gaza part of Israel? No. Well, everything that goes in and out of Gaza is controlled. They're not allowed to have a vote. They don't have any sort of independence or liberty. You have to say that Gaza is part of Israel, that I mean, a lot of people would describe it as an open air prison. How is it not an apartheid state? If Gaza isn't a part of Israel, then what is it? Is it its own independent nation? Does it have a government? Well, that was Hamas. They were elected. Yeah, but even before October 7th, what type of power did Hamas have? So is it fair to call Israel an apartheid state? And I have this argument with my buddy Eric all the time. And I would agree that Israel is an apartheid state. So you guys know where I stand on that.
And that's profoundly disappointing. I mean, I was shocked. I mean, overall, I mean, he might be more liberal, but I never thought he would actually go that way and would describe our strong special ally, you know, the only nation in the region, in that region, that lives the kind of values that they would live like in California.
Right.
And
Unless you're in Gaza.
I've been in Israel. Tel Aviv is like San Diego version of Israel. And now you just described that as apartheid state. I mean, that's a betrayal of the moral clarity.
How? I would love to hear Fetterman explain how Gaza isn't an apartheid portion of Israel. Someone explain it to me. How is it not an apartheid state?
And I can't imagine what he thinks that's the right side of history. And that's another truth.
So Fetterman talks about this anti-Israel sentiment that's spreading throughout the Democrat Party. It's not just spreading throughout the Democrat Party. The whole country and the whole world is becoming very disapproving of what Israel is doing in Gaza and the amount of influence they seemingly have over America's foreign policy. And there's a lot of people on the right. Yes, it's much more heavy on the left, but it's kind of different from the left because the left is just going to support whatever they're told to support. But this isn't just on the left. There's massive growing numbers of people that are looking at Israel and they're like, what the fuck is really going on? Like, what is this really? All right. Is that the end of the clip? Yeah, I think that's the end of the clip. I do not know how to pronounce your name. McCandix. How do I say your names? Can you spell it out so I can enunciate it properly? Agree completely. It looks like he's next up. Well, okay. So on the flip side, if Gavin takes this stance, if he takes essentially an anti-Israel stance, it's going to gain him a ton of support amongst Democrats, the people, the voting Democrats. He's going to lose a lot of support of the lobbyists. He's going to lose a lot of funding support. So it's a very interesting line that he's choosing to walk here. We'll see if he backtracks in the future. But I mean, looking at it that way, where you have the Democrat voters and then you have the Democrat funders, Gavin's sort of trying to rebrand as a populist, not a regime establishment candidate, because that's what he is right now. Gavin is an establishment candidate through and through. But taking this stance could help rebrand him as a populist amongst the Democrat base. This is the type of stance that Democrats are looking for. And this is the stance that a lot of America Firsters are looking for, including myself. But I will say, again, I will never vote for Gavin Newsom. But taking this stance is a very powerful stance to take. So we'll keep going here. Israel has attacked us so many times. They were involved in COVID-19 and mRNA. You're trying to get me kicked off of YouTube, huh? That was a comment that I was reading YouTube. I am not necessarily endorsing that comment, nor am I necessarily disagreeing with it. So just take that with a grain of salt there. All right, let's go over to California Post. So Gavin Newsom bets anti-Semitism is the Democrat Party's future. So this is the article from them. So Gavin Newsom, let me share might as well share this. Gavin Newsom endorsed the lie Tuesday that Israel is an apartheid state, a damning sign of where the Democrat Party is heading and how far it's already sunk. At an event promoting his new book, the California governor said Israel critics are appropriately calling it an apartheid state, a knockoff of South Africa's old segregationist regime. This is a lie, one so egregious that may deem it a form of anti-Semitism. let's see if they explain how Israel is not an apartheid state, or if they just call it a lie and leave it at that. Apartheid South Africa denied blacks the vote and forced them to endure separate hospitals, separate schools, and even separate bathrooms. Do the Palestinians in Gaza have a vote? Arabs, 20% of Israel's population, vote and serve in the government and even in the military, but not in Gaza. There is no segregation whatsoever between Jews and Arabs, unless you're talking about Gaza. Israelis and Palestinians clash in the West Bank, but that's a conflict over boundaries. Oh, they seem to be leaving out a certain region. Newsom's apartheid smear is a blood libel that has spurred anti-Semitic mobs to target Jews and Jewish institutions, often with deadly results, including in his own California. The governor once claimed presidential candidate should be a repairer of the breach, yet he's insisted on widening divisions and adding to the pressure on Jews, one of the country's most vulnerable minorities. At the same event, Newsom said he'd consider ending U.S. military support for Israel, even as Iranian missiles flew through the Israeli skies, aiming to kill civilians across the Jewish state. Well, didn't Benjamin Netanyahu just say that he has a plan to make it so he doesn't need funding from America anymore? So, interesting. All right, we'll finish reading this article. Days before, Newsom repeated a claim that the United States and Israel had bombed a school in Iran without waiting for the facts. We have no idea if Newsom truly. So before I continue, I'm still not positive who hit the school. Israel claims it was a misfired Iranian missile, but I don't know what the truth is. It's still the fog of war, and getting facts during a war is next to impossible. We have no idea if Newsom truly shares Jew hate implied by his apartheid comment. See, this is the type of thing that makes people say, F it, call me anti-Semitism, whatever. If you criticize Israel and what they're doing in Gaza, you are called a Jew hater and anti-Semitic. Asking the question, is Gaza an apartheid state in Israel? Asking that question makes you a Jew hater and anti-Semitic. It's funny because the person that I have this conversation with the most, and a very civil conversation, is my buddy Eric, and he's Jewish, and he doesn't agree with me at all. But he's one of my closest buddies, and he never gets mad at me for taking the stance that I take. So it's very strange how this whole fear of saying anything negative about the Israeli government has silenced people for decades, and now that is ending. People are saying, screw it. You want to call me anti-Semitic? Call me anti-Semitic. I'm questioning whether Israel is an apartheid state. And people are just saying, screw it. Now he trashes Israel because it plays well with the Democrat Party and increasingly follows its radical left-wing fringe. It doesn't just play well with the Democrat Party. The right holds an anti-Semitic fringe too. Oh, here we go. But President Trump has marginalized it. Newsom, the frontrunner for the party's next presidential nomination, has now embraced the far left's anti-Israel extremism, which should disqualify him for the presidency or even the job he holds now. Whether he's a bigot or just a shameless cynic, from here on out in the merits, nothing but contempt if he dares to say a word about peace, human rights, or tolerance. See, I hate the position that this is putting me in to defend Gavin Newsom. I hate it. Do not make me defend Gavin Newsom. Let's see what the top comment is here. With the news coming out of California that he signed a bill to allow violent criminals out of prison after only 20 years, like the guy being released now, he has zero chance for ever being president. I disagree. I disagree. Just play a commercial in a loop and he doesn't have a chance. And this guy responds to him. He says, in a normal society, your statement would be accurate. We have we have a subspecies called Democrats. They're fully capable of voting this clown into office. This is true. Don't underestimate the level of grooming that has occurred in the education system for decades now. So that's kind of the point. Democrats will rally around Gavin Newsom. Whether he'll be able to get past the primary because the lobbies will go against him because of this anti-Semitism stuff, that's the question. But if Gavin Newsom wins the primary and it's Gavin Newsom versus, say, JD Vance, all Democrats will be behind him. and they will all vote for him. A lot of people that voted for Trump are going to stay home during that election because they feel betrayed by Trump. So it's not about people switching from, MAGA supporters to voting for Gavin. It's about Gavin being able to rally the entire Democrat base and Republicans staying home. That's what this is all about. If there's a drop in voter turnout for Republicans and MAGA, and Gavin is able to rally the entire Democrat base, which he will be able to, you could very well have a Gavin Newsom president. So that's my argument. You can disagree with me all you want, but I think underestimating him is a very big mistake. And to illustrate the political footballs that he's throwing around, this is from Axios, says Trump's Iran war gas price spikes. And then he put the little Trump thing down there. It says, I did that, talking about gas prices. And he says, ruh-roh. No pun intended, the gaslighting of Gavin Newsom. Again, gas prices in California are insanely high because of Gavin Newsom. But now he can point at Trump and the Iran war and gas prices spiking nationwide and say, look what Trump did. And he'll be able to pull it off. People will buy it. This isn't about whether you or I agree with Gavin Newsom. It's about whether he'll be able to rally the Democrat base and how many people that voted for Trump are going to stay home. That's what this is all about. So keep going here. Israel. Okay, I already read that. All right, we'll keep going here. And this is from Nick Fuentes. So Nick Fuentes says, I'm voting Democrat in 2026 because white people can play both sides too. The GOP broke every single promise. Epstein file cover-up, regime change war in Iran, and no mass deportations. The GOP must be purged and burned to the ground in 26, hostile takeover in 28. Oh, so he is talking about 28. So, I mean, with what Nick's saying there, coupled with the stance Gavin Newsom is saying, is Nick going to try to rally the Groypers behind Gavin Newsom? I mean, I don't know. And if Gavin Newsom can somehow rebrand as a strong borders president, which would be another lie. California is a border state. We have sanctuary state policies that incentivize people to come here. We do not support border control at a state level in any regard whatsoever. But if he can gaslight and spin the narrative that he is somehow a pro-borders guy, yeah, like I think the right is severely underestimating Gavin, and maybe they're not paying attention. Maybe they think that because of what he's done to California that he can't rally the Democrat base. I think they're flat out wrong, and underestimating him is a huge mistake.